Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this BIBBA webinar. Let me introduce Carys. Carys Edwards. She's from North Wales, very harsh area for keeping bees. She successfully keeps 120 colonies of bees up there and produces honey and various jams and stuff like this. She's a well-known international honey show personality. She's got loads of prizes and trophies, and I think we've all got a lot to learn from her. So I think at this point, I'll hand over to her.
Thank you, Peter. Right, I'm based in Dolgellau. I started competing with honey when I was very young, and it became a passion to show best quality in all different shows. So now we've had COVID, the shows are reopening. I think it's important for people to present and show honey to the public. Now, showing honey is very different to producing honey. The standard is very, very different. Now, the honey itself, we start off with, one thing, doesn't matter what show, if it's a small show, to the National Welsh Show, to even Yorkshire Show, to even Highland Show. Whenever we go to show, our Bible for the event is the schedule. Everything we need to know is in this piece of paper. The judges will really look. One thing we have to remember is the rules and regulation. And one thing that's quickly a judge will do with honey is check it's in the right class. Now, how to know if it's light or medium? I've got a couple of jars here, very similar, but one is light, one is medium. This is light, this is medium. We use grading glasses. Now, there's different ones to get. There's one Thorns provide for the National Honey Show in 2015, BD honey grading glasses. And as well, but the problem is with those, you get them different shades. So the best way is you go back to the original old UHG grading glasses. You have to I have to apologize. It's the first time I've done a webinar, so if you hope you can see everything that I do. Anyway, so I would recommend to go with original glass grading glasses. They keep to the same color and everything. So it's important that you get the right color in the right class. Now, as I say, the schedule is your Bible. You first, when you fill a jar, how a judge is supposed to know that's this pound of honey in the jar? Well, if you see any gaps between the lid and the honey, then the judge will question it. If he can see a gap between the lid and the honey, then and there is proper pound jars, then we question, is it a full pound? We know you up in Yorkshire know about the Yorkshire pounds, then it's very, very slight. So we have to make sure that we fill the glasses, the jars right up to the top. Now, different glasses, there's different weights. The hexagon 12-ounce jars, well, if you fill those to the lid, those actually, there's 14 ounces in them. So it's very, very hard to judge. That's why most shows will say they want the traditional pound jar. And in the back of the Royal Welsh schedule, it does show where the lid and where the honey should be. Not all schedules does that, but we are luckily in Wales that they do. Now, each show is very different to each other. Some shows will accept plastic lids. The others will say gold lacquer lids. Don't do the mistake I did in Yorkshire Show once of seeing gold, didn't see the word lacquer, that means metal, and used the plastic. And because it wasn't as in schedule, they were thrown out of the competition. So it's important that you read the instruction carefully and the rules and regulation. Now, we want to encourage people to compete, and it's so important. They're in novice class. So in some of the novice class, judges will lean a little bit just to get the supports going for people to understand what they're looking for. Now, 2 jars of light honey. So they have to be the 2 jars exactly the same mark underneath. If there's different trademarks, they're not a pair. So have to be a pair. The glass has been judged as well as the honey. So you have to watch. Now, if you travel honey to shows, you have to keep them upright because a judge doesn't want to see honey on the lid. They will take marks off it. Now, another thing to look at is the bubbles round. You need to watch it's clean, and it's very, very important that it's clean. The judge will use lights to see through any of the jars. So if you can see, they'll look any air bubble, anything in the jar. I've got one jar here. Hopefully I'll find it. And I'll show it to the camera. I'm trying to, there's a small black dot in the middle of that glass. And it's very hard. Maybe it's easier to see without the lamp. Any dots, any propolis, any pollen in the honey will be disqualified. So it's very, very important that you check your jars, even air bubbles. So you have to look on the hygienic, filter your honey, any air bubbles. If it's misty, if you can't see through the glass, through the honey, then it's starting to granulate it. Any granulation in runny honey is disqualified, especially in big shows like the National Honey Show, Great North Yorkshire, the Highland Show, the Royal Welsh, they'll be disqualified. So you have to watch granulation, air bubbles. The clean list is very, very important. Clarity. Now, all honey, when judging honey, you will have a mark, number to put on the jar. You yourself usually put them on the jar, and they have to be exactly as you say in the schedule. If it's an inch up, a quarter of an inch up, you have to read what it says, and it's very important. If it says in the schedule it's supposed to be 1 inch from the bottom of the jar, and the label only about 1/3 in different shows, then it will not go as it says on schedule. Now, it's very, very important, and to remember that you've got a pair of runny, medium honey, pair of light honey, pair of dark honey. So it's very, very important to precise what colour you're going for. Like I say, the grading glasses is very important if you got them on the border. And as well, any crystallizations. Now, there's 2 crystallization classes. You've got pure granulated, that's hard, that's got the granules in it. The other one is creamed honey. Creamed honey or soft set has to be set, not runny. Any movements in the jar will be disqualified. And the thing is, if it's hot in summer, we can have a problem if we're out in a tent that the honey will start, then the judge will take it or should take it into the consideration if it's hot environment. But it is hard sometimes. Some shows will keep them in the fridge during the day, so judging can happen because people leave them in tents overnight. Well, any dust on the jar takes marks off. So you have to watch. If you set up the nights before, that perfectly clear, and fingers crossed they don't get any dust on. So it's very, very important. Now, philosophy, viscosity of the runny honey is very important as well. To get it runny, to get it clear, you need to get that heat so that bubbles come to the top and things. So if you overheat it, you get the smell. So you have to watch you don't overheat anything. And then you have to watch that it is runny and get the right viscosity of it. Now, one of the things that people think that judging would go on is the taste. Well, taste does take into considerations, but there's so many other things: correct filling, colour, taste, jar hygiene, lids hygiene, crystallization, honey hygiene, clarity, pollen, label, viscosity, and taste. Taste is the last thing that judge will do. So if you go from one show to the other, runny honey is no problem. People won't see if there's not much gap and the overfill. Judge will know that it's been in another show. But if you take the granulated, they can say that you've tried it in another show. Some judge will take it into consideration in big shows, but others won't. So you have to watch mostly that it is clean. Showing is very, very important. Now, to get the rice philosophy, my pronunciation is a little bit. To get the right one, you have to heat and get the clarity month ahead. And then making the nights before, you'll see bubbles. So any bubbles you need to wipe, even if you've got bubbles in the middle of the jar. It's hard for you to see, but there's small bubbles there, and you have to try and get them up. They will come in time to the top. As any dust or anything in the honey, they will come slowly up. But if it's granulated, then two places that judge can see pollen and bacteria, anything. It's bottom of the jar and top of the jar. So any dots or anything, they will come to the top. Now this is quite full because I probably think I always, any honey potential to go to show, I fill so I can use that spoon to get the dirt off at the end. Because if you can't, it's hard to see on camera, but there is a very, very small dot. And we use, as a judging, we use magnifying glass to look at them. So you have to be careful. And it's very, very important that we get the right honey for the show. Now, different show will have different competition. Yes, honey classes. One competition is the blackout jars. Not all shows like blackout jars. What is blackout jars is people covering the jars so they don't look at the hygiene. They go for the aroma and taste. And that is one way of having good honey. If you win the black jar competition, some will go for light. It'll go on the taste of the judge. If he likes light honey, then the light will get it. If he likes dark honey, he'll go for the dark. But the judge will have own personality taste that goes to judge the black. Some people like the competition, some people don't because of this clash. It's a independent judge taste that will go for the black jar usually. So it's very, very important. Now, going to different shows, they do compete. You can compete different honey classes: light, medium, dark, granulated, crystallized. Then you have groups of honey. commercial classes, 10 jars, 5 jars, 12 jars. They all have to be the same. And it's very important. Go to the national, you get 20, 25 jars of all the same honey with the same taste through them. And that's the problem. It's only once, and I've stewarded in many shows, that I've tasted pure elderflower honey. It's very rare, but that beekeeper, and I was in Shrewsbury Flower Show, prepared 2 pure elderflower honey, and you can taste the elderflower in that. Now, in this country, it's very hard to get pure one flavour honey. Yes, lime tree is well known as light honey, but when we come to the medium honey, the different taste you get through in those honey is very, very different. Now, because I was showing the honey so much, I did classes like baking and making jams. So I have developed my business to produce honey jams after being showing. But it's very important, if you follow a recipe, that you go with the recipe. Another thing you can show is your wax, and wax is very, very important. The colour and scent should be bright colour and opposite to dull. Well, pale, primrose yellow, yellow, dark yellow, orange yellow, all acceptable. Khaki, subdued yellow, and dull all indicates overheating, poor preparation. Wax should be a scent if prepared correctly. So it's very, very important with wax that you don't overheat it. Wax you need on low heat, but it takes time. If you overheat it, you'll crack the mold. It's very, very important to get a plain piece of wax mold. Is very, any bowl you've got with different shape, even the glass itself will show on the wax, so you have to watch what bowl you use. The cleanliness of wax should be free of dirt, hairs and honey, especially at the top where they gather during the mold. It should not feel sticky. So if you do candles, centre and wax should be centre, top and bottom, and be waxed in aid lighting. So a good mark, you need it well centred and waxed. Slightly off-centred will lose your mark, and off-centre you'll be thrown out of the competition. The mould should be straight, quality, and moulding finish. Candles should be straight, moulding should be sharp. You have to watch, if you do dipped candles, that you roll them when you're dipping them to get them as straight as you can, so you get that finish. And the most important thing with candles, if you're doing 2 candles or 3, that the 3 are all like identical, and look, height, colour, module and finish. Now, lots of people will show their wax in a case. So I've got a case here with different wax in it, been in different shows. But with age, they do go a little bit darker. So that's a cake mould, some small moulds, beeswax mould, and the candles. So it's very, very important to get the right colour. So 2 identical. You will, because the judging, when they do candles, they will mostly burn them to see how the wick burns as well. So you have to watch that you've got the right wick for the candles. So burning, it should be, the candle should be light, easy at first, then should burn without glittering, smoke, and should not shoulder too long. And they blow the candles off, and then they'll relight it, and they'll check that the wick size is correct. So candles should relight easily, burn without glittering, smoking, etc. Look for pigtailing of wick, cauliflower. So if the wick turns, should the spokes on wick and oval wicks. So they are judging. It's hard to get. Some honey judges will look at them, and if the wick is pickled, then it's not the right wick for wax candles, beeswax candle. So it's hard to get proper wick candle in this country at the moment. If you want the real good stuff, you need to go to America, unfortunately. So it's very important how you present your candles, your wax. You need to watch. They're in a box. If you put them on a plate and just leave them, they'll collect the dust. So you have to watch. Then as well, when you're showing, you can there's competition for mead as well. So if you're a mead maker, there's ways that judge will judge those. They will have a judging sheet. Different shows will have different kind of sheets. So they're looking presentation, bottle, the cork, even the label, where you put the label on the jar, clarity, colour, the bouquet, colour, flavour, balance, body. So there's different things that judging always look. Then the tasting at the end, and usually it's out of 100%. They will judge different. So the judge then will have to add, if there maybe some will be better in clarity and colour to compare with the bouquet. So there is a thing you have to watch. The Yorkshire Show have to use cork and not plastic. Some will accept plastic, but every schedule you go back to the rules. Look what they say. Look what they're supposed to be on top. So it's very, very important. Now, showing even observation hive is very, very important. How you present them. So correct frames to fit, a correct size, correct gaps. So the absence of brace comb, bee space. So it's very, you have to watch. So they will look for correct frame spacing, comb straw out correctly, comb soundness newest, feeding facilities, general get-up of the colony. Colony balance, drone, how much drones there is. You have to have some drones there. Colony workers, how much workers you've got them. How frames of stores and supers. Colony temperament, open stores with nectar and pollen. So if we have a bad month, they've got something straight away. So they watch that you mark the queen with a correct colour for each year. Education merits, if you point things out. Labels and general impression. There would be deduction if they find any presence of foul brood, signs of chalk brood, sack brood, or varroa infestation. So they will deduct when they judge the observation hive. Taking bees to a show, observation hive, it's nice to get people to show bees, because there's so much difference between the Welsh black bees or the breakfast, the amounts that the queen's laying, how healthy it is. So its nukes are able to show, but people will have to look if there's any foul brood in the area and how long the show is supposed to be goes on. So you have to watch where you where you go with your bees. You know, if they're there for 3 days, 4 days, and if they found foul brood in the area, then that class will be cancelled before you take them there. Because if you take observation hives, you have to watch there's enough water for them. They're locked there even in the day, nice days. So you have to look after them, but you need to show them because people love to see observation hives. The general public will watch them, they'll learn lots from them, and it's so important that we do take them so people can see what is beekeeping, to get other people to beekeep. The different species that we keep, like I keep the Welsh Black. It's the ideal, but I wouldn't like to take too many big colonies to shows. I only take new core because the temperaments can be upsetting for them. So you when you travel them, it's important. So so going back, you have to read your schedule. Please compete, show off your honey, because what British honey's got is important to show, because our quality is very, very high, and we are looking for high quality honey. Different shows, level of competing is going down. We need to get that back after COVID now. So I hope this talk does encourage people to go and prepare, think, right, next month, the school schedules will be out for probably the Highland show, Yorkshire show. By May, you'll have many big shows out. We have to remember that the National Honey Show is in October, so that will give a fresh honey a chance. But in my area, it's hard to go and find fresh honey for those early shows. But it is a job to present honey to the high quality. Jars are very important. What kind of jar do you use? And the lid. You don't want even a scratch on this metal lid. Some people will change lid after they arrive at the venue. Some won't, because if they don't do it carefully, they'll collect the dust from the air. So it's very important for you to watch how you carry your honey to your show. Please, it's important to show your honey, even in small shows. I hope this has encouraged you to compete, but you get it right. It doesn't matter, maybe try first. Any questions, the judge will give you reflect why has he pulled you off the competition if there's big things wrong with the jar. So it's very important. When we do big classes of different things, we have to get a sheet marking different produce, from the mead to the candles to the wax blocks to the different honey. So when we do a composite class, when they want a selection of what a beekeeper can do, they will judge each individual and then mark up at the end. But yeah, is there any questions so far, Richard?
Diolch yn fawr i ti, Carys. Thank you very much. That was an excellent presentation. I think the questions now will come through Richard. I think Richard will have had questions typed up on his screen.
Hi, Carys.
And I'll hand over to Richard now.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Carys. I, for one, didn't realise that they looked at the underneath the glassware at the similar markings on the glass and things like that. That's that's another level, isn't it? So we have had a question in, and that's in relation to dipped candles and the end that you would light, the wick end. Do you dip the wick at the end, or do you leave that undipped?
Personally dip it so it lights better when you first light it. Like I said, the wick itself is so important that you get the right wick size, but most people will dip the wick itself to get that first light, because you only got, when you light to match, you've only got 5 seconds and it should take a light. So it's better if you do dip the wick.
Excellent, thank you. The next one is there a maximum number of competitors in each class?
No. The only thing there is that single person can only exhibit one exhibit. So, but any amount can do different honey. But like if you go to the Yorkshire Show, you'll have 60 in one class, the national 600 competitors. But in those big shows, then they will say one exhibitor, one entry in each class.
Thank you.
I'll say in the schedule that.
Yeah. The next one, any tips for keeping the honey jars level when you're travelling up and down the hills to shows?
Yeah, pack them tight. If you pack them tight, and if the viscosity is fine, they won't shake too much. So yeah, pack them tight.
Going on from that that question, is there a way to ensure that there is no honey on the underside of the lid when you get to the show and when the judge takes it off?
Well, the judge will take into consideration how much honey there will be on the lid. Some judge will penalise very hard. Some, okay, if it's only 1 dot, then they'll take it into consideration. But usually, if you don't drop a jar just before putting it out, you should be okay. Because in some shows, the stewards will place your honey on the judging bench. So it's not you always moving your honey. So in those shows, the judge will have to take into consideration, and they'll usually wear white gloves to do that.
I know that when I tried showing at our local show in Barnsley at Penistone, and I put cling film over the top of the jar and then put the lid on. And then when I got to the show, took the lid off and the cling film and put the lid back on. And that stopped the honey sticking to the underside of the lid.
It does, but the only thing, when you open the jar, change that lid, if there isn't a time, you will lose the aroma of the honey during that change.
Right, okay.
You have to, depends how long will it take for the judge to reopen it to take the aroma. They will lose a little bit of the aroma.
Didn't think of that. This is an interesting question. Ian has heard a rumour that some competitors will put fingerprints on or marks on other people's jars so that they get downgraded. Do you know if that really happens, or is that just?
I don't think so. Maybe local shows, but local shows, the judge would not look at finger marks such as not if it's close competition. So if stewards move them, he has to wear gloves. So yeah, nobody else should touch those jars before they'll be judged.
Heather would like to know, in very big classes, how on earth does the judge remember the first jar of honey that they've assessed by the time that they've got to the end?
Yeah, well, it is a job, but they'll go through each jar first. If they see any black spots, they'll turn the jar. So they'll eliminate them. It's an eliminating process. Then they'll bring the cleaners, the matting jar, onto another bench, and then taste is the last thing they'll do, basically. So they'll look for the other things first: the crash, fill, the colour, taste, jar hygiene, lid hygiene, crystallization, honey hygiene, clarity, pollen, label, viscosity, and then the taste. So they will do it a matter of elimination, and then they'll go to the taste. And then when you've got there's so many things, a small dots of air bubble is enough to throw them down, especially in big classes, because maybe you won't even open if it's a big class if there's an air bubble in the wrong place.
Right. Excellent. Do you have any tips on showing cut comb or sections?
Yes. When you do cut comb on sections, you have to watch that you've got the right weight, but you don't want any loose honey. You don't want any crystallized in there. So you need fresh, as light, no pollen in them. So if there's any pollen in the cut comb, they've been judged down. So the right weight is important. The judge will take it out, check both sides. So how has it been capped is important, and then that is the same honey in the comb. If there's two different colour of honey, then it'll be judged down. So it has to be the same honey in the frame or in the comb or in the sections. So sections is one of the hardest things to do, to get the bees to do them to start. So cut comb, it's better, it's easier, but you have to have the right weights there, because they will weight them. And the thing is, with the cut comb, I haven't got enough in that, I'll pour some honey in. The judge will then take marks if you put extra honey in. Even if it's the same honey, they'll know. They want to see it quite dry in the box.
Right. So maybe put in the sections on a like a baking rack so that it can drip before you put it into.
Yes, it needs to be dripped before you put it in the box, basically. To show them.
How far in advance of the show would you make cakes, biscuits, sweets, and fudge?
It all depends what kind of cake it is. If it's a barberries, then I would do that about a fortnight, 3 weeks beforehand, because barberries wants time to set. Others, I would do them a day, 2 days before, as fresh as people can do it, basically. So they keep the moisture and everything in. So it's all dependent on the cake itself as well.
Right. What's Barbrith?
Barbrith is a Welsh fruit cake.
Ah.
It's a tea cake, but it's a Welsh traditional cake, basically. So it's similar to fruit cake, tea cake, in that kind of section.
Excellent. Can you describe how you filter your wax ready for showing?
But some people will put it through a coffee filter, leave it in the oven overnight to drip through, because it's a long process, and then watch there's no vibration. So after it's filtered through, they will put the oven off and don't disturb the room, because any movements can shake the wax, and that can cause the line. Or so I filter through a coffee filter. Some do blankets, wool blankets, but I think if you put them in the oven, low heat, you can leave it, and they'll take time to filter through, but that gives you the cleanest wax.
Excellent. When you are showing heather honey, what are they looking for, given that there are already lots of bubbles in heather honey? What would you be looking for in a heather?
The heather, well, you don't need any granulation. You can mark the honey, and they watch how the honey close that mark. How long will it stay like a jelly? The papaling heather honey is, you won't mark. The mark will be there for a long time, but it will collapse a little bit. And some heather honey that does come to shows, you can say, that's been in the show before. There is the mark there. So the mark is still there a little bit, but it's important. And the size of the bubbles as well in heather honey. And it's all the same size of bubble throughout the jar. Blend heather honey is different again, because those won't have the same bubbles, but there will be, and they don't want granulation in heather blend either.
Did I hear you earlier when you said that something about a wick being pickled?
Yes.
What's that?
Wicks, usually beeswax wicks, should be pickled. A great friend of mine, Michael Young over in Ireland, taught me about this, and he could do a whole webinar on bee wicks. It's hard to get a proper wick now for beeswax. They don't light as well. They don't curb. They don't do them the way they used to. The big companies don't do them the way they are. I won't name any companies, but the quality is not the same as it was years ago. And if you want a proper pickled wick, you have to go to America.
Fascinating. I'll just double check to make sure we haven't had any more questions. I've got a question in here. Are the cakes made to specific recipes, and where would you get those from?
We're going back to the schedule. So in the Yorkshire Show, there are a wholemeal cob, the recipe's there. Honey tea bread, the recipe's there. Honey dates and raisin flapjack, the recipe's there. But there are some competition here. There's no recipes and they will tell you about them. So they'll say one honey cake, exhibitor's own recipe. Honey biscuit, exhibitor's own recipe. And if it is the exhibitor's own recipe, you should provide the recipe with your cake, so the judge can balance what was in the cake, basically. So the schedule is your Bible, will tell you everything.
Excellent. And I think that's all the questions that have come in. Yeah, I think so. Back to you, Peter.
Well, diolch yn fawr I ti, Carys. You spoke there straight from the heart, without any notes, without any PowerPoints. That was a brilliant presentation. I enjoyed it very much, and I learned a lot. And I've been keeping bees for a long time, but I've never shown any honey, and so I learned a lot from that. So diolch yn fawr iawn I ti. Thank you very much indeed. So no more questions. For those that have never listened to Carys before, she's a very experienced beekeeper, very experienced, as you can tell from the presentation, knows a lot about honey, and hope to, well, we'll hope to meet with you again through BIBBA and through the meetings and what have you, and the live at the hives and things that we do down here in West Wales. I think we enjoyed ourselves last year, and I hope to do again in the coming 2022. Okay, I'll hand back to you, Richard, and we'll don't know what the next move is.
Yeah, thank you. Just a quick one about our upcoming webinars that we've got in the pipeline. So the next one I see on the schedule is Dr. Jane Medwell speaking on being an experienced beekeeper. That's on the 22nd of February. We've got the 8th of March, we've got Marla Spivak coming to speak to us about social immunity in honeybees. On the 15th of March, we've got Roger Patterson speaking about beekeeping, can we make it pay? And then on the 22nd of March, we've got moving up the next step into semi-commercial beekeeping. So if you are a BIBBA member, make sure you're checking your emails, because we'll have an email coming out to you with the link for registering for those webinars. And if you're not currently a BIBBA member, consider joining. We're only £20, but you can also view our webinars from our YouTube channel as well.